You know, there's a lot of things I love about Halloween. Endless candy, endless booze, but most of all telling scary stories. Tales of tire failures and limited horsepower, But today I'd like to tell you about the scariest one of them all. About a being so elusive that the uninitiated might deny its existence, but make no mistake, it's real and it's out there. Lurking. Waiting. Just when you think your favorite driver has the win in the bag, BAM! All hope is lost as their advantage vanishes and their confidence crumbles. Now, some of these victims still make it out with the win, but most aren't so lucky. And in a worst-case scenario, they fall to the back of the pack, never to be heard from again. Or at least until next week. So take a seat, my friends, and make sure you leave the lights on, because it's time to discuss the legend of the Phantom Caution.
Now, its reputation does precede it, as all drivers shudder when you utter its name, but to the fans, it's just a nuisance. I mean, imagine you're a football team ready to close out a 29-0 shutout, only for the refs to hand the ball to the other team, place it 5 yards from the end zone, and then give them a complimentary 28 points just to keep it close. That's what it's like to suffer the brunt end of a phantom caution, and most of the time they take the form of a debris caution, a yellow flag thrown for an obstruction on the racetrack. I repeat, on the racetrack. So that time they threw a caution for debris on the apron, that's a phantom. What about the one for a rag sitting where no one ever drives? Also a phantom. Or how about the one for a tire sitting on pit road? Or, I'm sorry, a tire sitting on a part of pit road that you're not even allowed to drive on? Definitely a phantom. Now don't get me wrong, there are plenty of good reasons to throw a debris caution, as a piece of paper has the potential to blow a motor and even the tiniest bit of shrapnel can be turned into a lethal projectile. But I do raise you this. With the combined might of NASCAR's media team and the television networks that follow them around, they should have the manpower to cover every part of the racetrack at all times. So how come, every so often, this so-called life-threatening mystery trash fails to find its way on the screen? It tends to raise a few eyebrows, like the eyebrows of Denny Hamlin at Michigan in 2010, or the eyebrows of Greg Biffle at Michigan in 2011, or the eyebrows of the entire field in 2017 at where else but Michigan.
You know, debris? What the Yellow debris down the back. Pretty sure that's a water bottle. Yeah, there's tons of debris back here. NASCAR debris caution!
Michigan. Y'all, clean that place up. Though I think one of the most egregious examples happened on the other side of the country, at the 2015 Auto Club 400. With 16 laps to go, the field is being led by Matt Kenseth, Kevin Harvick, and Kurt Busch, who have led a combined 121 laps on the day. But for debris that they coincidentally chose not to show on TV, NASCAR bunched the field back up and sent them down for their final pit stops. And as the race leader Kenseth is let off the jack, he burns rubber to no avail. As it's revealed, he broke an axle and has thus been taken out of the race. After a restart with 11 laps to go, it turns into a dogfight between the Stewart-Haas teammates, one that could have very well gone all the way to the end. But as Kurt Busch opened up a gap with just 2 to go,
Yellow's out.
And caution is out.
Now you'd think with such a late yellow they'd have a pretty good reason for it, right?
Debris in turn 4 is the reason for this caution flag.
You know what's funny? Instead of actually showing the debris, the thing that completely altered the race, they decided to show the reaction of Kurt's crew chief Tony Gibson, who rightfully looks disgusted with the sport he's devoted his life to. And now it's time for a green-white checkered, where the leaders took 2 tires and made short work of the ones who stayed out. As in a jaw-dropping move, Kurt Busch would split Tony Stewart and Jeff Gordon to take the lead for good. Just 3 miles to go with not a single other car in sight. Surely nothing could stop him now.
There's the caution. That's what happened. Caution is out. Debris turn 2.
With this yellow flag, NASCAR had thrown its 5th debris caution of the race, more than doubling that season's average. Although, to their credit, at least they decided to show it this time. And I mean, how could you not? It was a whole ass bumper. But at this point, the guys who had taken 4 tires had found their way to the front. And despite a genuine wreck on the front stretch, NASCAR decided to turn the other cheek for once, leaving Kurt Busch completely defenseless against Brad Keselowski, who swooped in to take the win. Kurt had led a total of 65 laps that day. Brad, just the 1. In fact, when the initial debris caution came out, Brad was all the way back in 8th place, not even a consideration for the win. But thanks to some certified tomfoolery, Keselowski would claim his first and only win in Fontana. This was brutal, and yet it's just one of the more egregious examples in a sea of tens, hundreds, possibly thousands of others that have permeated the sport across its whole history. And yet it didn't really become a point of discussion until the mid-2000s, as a slew of journalists, fans, and drivers alike began voicing their displeasure with NASCAR. Even Tony Stewart, the loudmouth heel notorious for his white-hot temper, somehow received unanimous support from the fans when he compared NASCAR to WWE, saying that it was all in the interest of entertainment and that the sanctioning body was, quote, playing God. and in a valiant effort to disprove Stewart's spiteful slander, they fined him $100,000. But his words still hold a lot of truth, and to see just how much, let's take a look at the numbers. Thanks to these statistics from the Georgetown Sports Analysis, we can see just how many cautions NASCAR has thrown for debris over the past 30+ years, which, unless tracks are getting dirtier or bolts are getting looser, is a stat that should remain fairly consistent. In the 90s, you might see a debris caution once every 2 races or so. But as the sport entered the new millennium, that number rose to as much as 2.5 debris cautions per race, a 500% increase in just a handful of years. People often give the NFL or NBA flack for the number of flags or fouls they give, but I don't think any of the big American sports even come close to this kind of meddling. But maybe you're not convinced. Maybe you think the groundskeepers just didn't clean their tracks after 2005, which is stupid, but could still hold some merit if the stat ended here. Yeah. From 2017 onward, the number of debris cautions plummeted right back to where it was in the 90s. And wouldn't you know it, 2017 also happened to be the year that NASCAR introduced stage cautions, scheduled yellow flags that would break the race into parts. That's a really big change, but when you include competition and stages in this stat, the actual rate of cautions remains staggeringly consistent. NASCAR is still throwing the yellow just as much as they had before. It's just that instead of them being labeled as debris cautions, they're now classified as stage breaks. A more honorable way to delegitimize the sport. Now, maybe there's another explanation. Maybe there are simply more wrecks than there were 30 years ago, and while that is true, the variance doesn't even come close to matching up. Any way you slice it, this is NASCAR playing God. But wait, because it gets even worse. It's no secret that the sanctioning body likes to hover hand the caution button as the race reaches crunch time. But just how often have debris cautions affected the end of a race? Well, consistent with the previous graph, almost no debris cautions were called with less than 30 laps to go pre-2005. But as we trek forward, that number rises like crazy, with some seasons seeing as much as 11 late yellows for debris. Assuming those aren't multiples like in the Auto Club example, that's NASCAR stepping in and affecting the outcome of almost a third of their races. That's the kind of stuff that can ruin a championship. And keeping with the same formula, that number would fall off a cliff come 2017. If the numbers say anything, it's this. NASCAR has shamelessly affected the outcome of countless races. And by introducing stage racing, they can keep doing the same thing whilst also clearing themselves of any wrongdoing, both morally and by the book. I'm not a playoff hater by any means, but just as Tony Stewart wasn't lying, these numbers don't lie either. And that's the thing about phantom cautions. It's hard to see them. Sometimes they blend in so seamlessly that we might not even realize they're there. But what about the opposite? You see, sometimes they don't hide so much as they jump up and down, wave their hands, and scream directly in your ear. As some yellow flags are so mind-numbingly stupid that you wonder why they were even thrown to begin with. For an example that I've never fully recovered from, let's head to Richmond in 2017. When race leader Matt Kenseth went a little too hard into turn 3 but gathered it back up and kept on rolling. And then the yellow flag. Was someone else involved? No. Was there debris? No. Was there a fan sitting atop the catch fence? Also no. So why was the caution called? They never really gave a clear answer on the broadcast, so I decided to consult Racing Reference, which commonly lists the type of accident and the cars involved. But in this particular case, they only describe it in one word. Smoke. I mean, yeah, there was smoke. So anyways, he would damn near run into... Okay. So anyways, Matt Kenseth would damn near run into an ambulance later on, which opened up the race to Martin Truex Jr., who with 4 laps to go was cruising to his 5th win of the year. Until...
It is a caution comes out with under 4 to go.
I swear to Christ, if they called another debris caution, I'm gonna... Oh, wait, the track is clear. And everyone's still rolling. So what gives?
Here's the cause of the caution. You see the 15 gets all the way up. Wow, that's decent contact with the wall. You see all the debris flying.
Seriously? I know compared to the severity of the Kenseth incident that this was like a 10-car pileup, but I could name 1,000 examples of the same scenario, and in some cases even worse ones playing out to where NASCAR kept it green. They had already committed this sin once earlier in the night, but instead of learning from their mistake, they doubled down, bunching the field back up and handing Truex one of the hardest losses of his entire career.
And up into the wall goes the 78 hard. Kyle Larson will be the winner.
He still ended up winning the regular season championship, but you could tell during the ceremony he was dejected, shaken, as if he had seen a ghost. But sometimes it isn't enough for the Phantom to scare you. It'll toy with you, mess with you, drive you to the brink of insanity, just like it did for me about 1.5 years ago. We've already been down this road, so if you want to see the things that keep me up at night, you can check out this video. But the long and short of it is that Ricky Stenhouse taps the wall, yellow flag is thrown before the checkered, and the Phantom laughs its happy ass all the way back to North Wilkesboro. Indeed, the Phantoms seem to pop up just about everywhere, and yet in the making of this video, I could only name a few. Knowing that there are many more examples lingering in the shadows, I turn to you guys to bring them into the light, And let me tell you, you brought back memories I didn't even know I had. Starting off with an obvious one, the infamous Spingate scandal of 2013, when an intentional donut by Clint Boyer in an attempt to get his teammate into the chase cost Ryan Newman what could have been the penultimate victory of his career and Jeff Gordon a spot in the postseason. In the aftermath, he would end up getting it anyway, but clearly Clint still held a grudge, probably for taking him out of the 2012 championship, as in the following year he would run it back by taking away an easy win for Gordon in Fontana, just 1 year before the infamous Kurt Busch debacle. Speaking of Kurt Busch, he would also lose out in the 2010 Food City 500, as a strong run would be left in vain for a piece of brake duct in turn 4. Or how about the 2019 Coke Zero 400, when after flip-flopping on whether or not they should throw the green flag, NASCAR screwed him over again by letting him pit and relinquish his lead before the ensuing red flag, which would turn out to be the end of the race. He found redemption at Kentucky the following week, but still, this was just cruel. Though not nearly as cruel as Rockingham in 1995, when the Phantom disguised one of Dale Earnhardt's lug nuts to make it look like it wasn't even there. When one of the officials saw the gaping hole, they issued him a 1-lap penalty, only to realize that there was, in fact, 5 lug nuts on that tire. So to make up for their mistake, they threw a caution to get him back on the lead lap. The only problem was that it came at the detriment of everyone else, who had varying pit strategies that were suddenly ruined. Still, it wouldn't be enough to stop Gordon's first championship run, and 12 years later he would tie the Intimidator with his 76th win, coming at the hands of 4 debris cautions that would ruin the race for Tony Stewart, who would once again suffer the short end at Richmond in 2012, losing a surefire victory to Kyle Busch. At the following year's Bank of America 500, Jimmy Johnson's lead would be swept away in the interest of a close title fight, debris on the backstretch. And if that wasn't bad enough, inexplicable mid-pack spins would directly affect the outcomes of 3 consecutive championships, with Suarez spinning in the closing laps of 2018, Kurt Busch in the closing laps of 2017, and Dylan Lupton blowing a tire in 2016. Who's Dylan Lupton? I don't know, but on that night in 2016, he made history by ruining Carl Edwards' final shot at a championship and setting him up for that horrible Turn 1 crash that would turn out to be the final moment of his entire career. 1970 champion Bobby Isaac's career was cut short after he pulled off the track in Talladega, citing the reason as a disembodied voice telling him to stop. Do you think that, in this moment, 46 years later, Carl Edwards heard the same voice? Over the past couple of years, the Phantom has shown its face less and less, though on occasion, it still likes to show us that it's out there biding its time, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. But it does make me wonder. NASCAR uses the Phantom caution as a way to drum up artificial yet entertaining finishes. What should be marquee moments that will forever stand the test of time, and yet I couldn't remember Richmond in 2012, or Charlotte in 2013, or Fontana in 2015, or many of the other examples listed. And as for the ones that I do remember, they're usually for other reasons that just happen to coincide. Hell, I had to go to you guys for most of the content in this video, because despite holding a vast knowledge of NASCAR history, I couldn't put a finger to most of these examples. And that's the point, really. For the longest time, NASCAR wanted us to act like this was normal, like we couldn't see the Phantom. But we always could, clear as day. And we could also see right through it. Through all of their fumbling attempts to drum up drama, they did the exact opposite, tarnishing their own reputation and inadvertently contributing to their own downfall through the 2010s.
At least we've closed this chapter for now, but we may not be out of the woods yet. So beware, dear race fan, for no win is certain until the flagman flies his checkered curtain. And as long as race cars leave debris for us to find, rest assured the Phantom looms close behind.
Also, deplatform Sniper Wolf. Okay, bye!